The morning haze hung low over the tarmac, casting long shadows of the parked aircraft that glittered under the first touch of sunlight. The base was buzzing with activity, a mix of chatter, engine hums, and the faint crackle of radios. The clusters of pilots preparing for their routine flights. There was one figure who walked slightly apart, shoulders straight, eyes determined. Her name was Maya Torres. She wasn't the tallest in the squadron, nor the loudest, but there was something in the way she carried herself. Something that seemed to silently announce that she didn't need approval to belong here. Still belonging was the one thing everyone around her seemed unwilling to grant her at the academy. Most of the cadets had learned to measure one another by bloodlines and backgrounds, by fathers who were generals, uncles who commanded squadrons, or family names that carried history. Maya had none of that. Her father had been a mechanic, her mother a teacher. No one in her family tree had ever been a pilot, let alone in a military cockpit. To most of the others, she was an outsider who had clawed her way into a world that wasn't made for her. And as if that wasn't enough, there was the call sign. Every pilot received one. Sometimes they were earned, sometimes they were mocked into existence. Hers came from a mistake during training when her voice cracked over the radio in her very first solo exercise. Nervous, flustered, she had stuttered while confirming her maneuver. The instructor at the time had laughed and said, "You sound like a bird choking on its own feathers." The other cadets had roared, and someone threw out the nickname Falcon, not for the majesty of the bird, but as a sneer. Falcon 12, they called her, because she'd been the 12th cadet in line that day. It stuck every time she signed in. Every time her name appeared on the log, the others grinned knowingly. Falcon 12, they'd whisper a reminder that her place here had been born of a mistake. Dumb. She wasn't soaring. She was stumbling, trying to flap her wings in a sky too high for her. But Maya never flinched. She bore the call sign with a quiet grace. What they thought was mockery, she reshaped into identity. She practiced harder, studied longer, and flew with a precision that slowly, steadily began to silence even the harshest smirks. Still, the jokes never fully went away, and in the unspoken hierarchy of the base, she remained the one to watch. With skepticism, the one expected to falter eventually. That morning, she approached her jet, the sleek silver beast that seemed to almost hum with anticipation even before the engines were on. Maya ran her fingers across the cool metal of the fuselage. Her crew chief, an older man with streaks of gray in his beard, gave her a nod. He had seen countless young pilots come and go, many of them arrogant, many careless. He respected Maya in a way that others didn't. She checked everything twice, treated every flight like it mattered. "You're up early again, Falcon," he said, using her call sign not with derision, but with a kind of quiet acknowledgement. "Couldn't sleep," she replied. "It's too much energy." "You'll need it," he muttered, handing her the final checklist. Today wasn't just another drill. Today was the day of the evaluation flights, where a handful of cadets would be tested in advanced combat simulations. The results would decide who would be recommended for the upcoming elite mission assignment. Something every pilot secretly and not so secretly dreamed of. Maya knew the eyes would be on her, perhaps even more than on anyone else. If she failed, it would justify everything. They had whispered about her since day one. If she succeeded, well, even then, she suspected some would find a way to diminish it. But for her, it wasn't about them. It was about the sky. It was about proving to herself that she belonged here. The loudspeaker blared, calling the pilots to readiness. Maya climbed into the cockpit, the smell of oil and metal greeting her like an old friend. Strapping in, she adjusted her helmet and felt the familiar press of the oxygen mask against her skin. Her heart rate quickened, not with fear, but with the intoxicating rush of anticipation as the engines roared to life. Vibrating beneath her like a living creature, she radioed in. "Control, Falcon 12 ready for takeoff." There was a pause, then the laughter came. It's not over the official frequency, but in the background chatter that pilots often allowed to slip through. "Falcon 12, one voice chuckled. "Don't crash on takeoff, Birdie," other chimed in. "Hope the tower packed a broom to sweep up your feathers." Maya said nothing. She kept her eyes straight ahead, breathing steady. Let them laugh. The runway stretched before her like a path to destiny. Falcon 12, you're cleared for takeoff. The control tower confirmed at last, professional, and clipped with a push of the throttle, her jet surged forward. Wheels rattling against the concrete before lifting into the air. The ground fell away, the sky opening up to embrace her. And up there, alone with the clouds, the voices of mockery, couldn't reach. The simulation that awaited was designed to test reflexes, strategy, and composure under pressure. Maya's task was to navigate through a series of unpredictable threats and meet aircraft. Missile locks, radar jamming, and to demonstrate not just skill, but decision-making under duress. The first wave came quickly, 2 opposing jets appearing. On her radar, she banked left, her fingers tightening on the stick, eyes scanning. The enemy locked onto her, and the alarm screamed inside her cockpit. Instinct might have told her to evade immediately, but Maya trusted her training. She waited for just the right moment, then rolled sharply, cutting power and diving before accelerating into a climb. The missile lost its track. In seconds, she was behind one of the enemy jets, simulated weapons lock achieved. Her console beeped. 1 enemy down. Not bad for a bird with broken wings. A mocking voice came over the open channel. It was Jason, one of the top cadets, known for his arrogance as much as his skill. He had made it a personal mission to remind Maya of her supposed inadequacy. She ignored him, focusing on the second target. It darted away, weaving to shake her off. Maya tightened her pursuit, every movement precise, every calculation sharp. The simulated missile found its mark. It's 2 down, but the test wasn't over. Far from it, the radar lit up with new threats. 4 more blips, approaching fast. Her oxygen hissed steadily as she steadied her breathing. Sweat trickled along her temple, but her grip didn't falter. The fight dragged on, every maneuver draining her physically and mentally. Her jet screamed through tight turns, engines straining, alarms blaring. Yet every time the situation seemed impossible, she found a way through. Her mind worked like a chessboard, anticipating moves, countering with precision. By the end, she had cleared the field, the final enemy down. The simulation complete, her body sagged in the seat, exhausted but exhilarated. She had done it. As she taxied back, the chatter returned. This time, it wasn't mocking laughter. It was silence at first, then a few clipped remarks. Not bad. Got lucky. See how she does in the real thing. I couldn't admit it outright, but she had impressed them. Back in the hangar, Maya removed her helmet, her dark hair clinging to her forehead with sweat. Jason approached, smirking. Don't get too comfortable, Falcon 12. 1 good run doesn't make you a real pilot. When the pressure's real, you'll crack. You'll always do. Maya met his eyes calmly. We'll see. That night, lying in her bunk, Maya stared at the ceiling. The laughter still echoed in her memory, but so did the voice of the control tower. Falcon 12, you're cleared for takeoff. She whispered the words to herself, letting them sink into her bones. It wasn't just a call sign. It was permission. It was acknowledgement. It was proof that she was in the sky where she belonged. What she didn't know was that within days, she would face a test far greater than any simulation. A mission where real lives would hang in the balance, where the mocking voices would be drowned out by the roar of engines and the crackle of desperate radio calls. A mission where Falcon 12 would no longer be a joke, but the name everyone would pray to hear on the other end of the line. And when that moment came, the world would discover that sometimes the call sign they laugh at becomes the one they'll never forget. 3 days later, the base was no longer the same. The chatter that usually floated casually across the hangar floor was replaced by tension so thick it clung to everyone's skin. The morning air carried a weight that no sunlight could burn off. There had been an incursional identified aircraft, had crossed into restricted airspace near a critical border. Intelligence suggested they weren't just passing through. Something far larger was unfolding. The call came down swiftly. The squadron was being deployed for real. No simulation, no practice run. This was it. Maya stood in line with the others as the commanding officer briefed them, the map glowing on the wall behind him. Red blips swarmed across it, clustered near the border. These are hostile aircraft. Their objective is still unclear, but we cannot afford to let them advance. We will intercept, identify, and if necessary, engage. This is not an exercise. Lives are at stake. Fail, and we lose more than pride. The pilots nodded, though some masked their nerves better than others. Jason, standing a few feet from Maya, wore his usual smirk, though she noticed his fingers tapping against his thigh. Even arrogance had its limits when faced with reality. The commander's eyes swept the room, landing for a moment on Maya. He didn't speak, but the unspoken question hung heavy. Would Falcon 12 crack, or would she rise? Minutes later, Maya was in her cockpit, the roar of engines surrounding her, like a symphony of steel and fire. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She had waited her entire life for this moment. No matter what came, she would not let fear write her story. Control, Falcon 12 ready. She radioed in. Falcon 12, you're cleared, the tower replied, calm and steady. The words wrapped around her like armor. The squadron launched together, jets slicing through the sky in perfect formation. The ground fell away beneath them, a patchwork of green and brown shrinking until it was nothing but memory. The horizon stretched wide, limitless, and for the first time, the mocking call sign felt like prophecy. A falcon was meant to soar. The first contact came faster than expected. Lips on the radar, closing in. The squadron split, pairs breaking off to intercept. Maya and Jason were assigned as wing partners. She caught the brief flash of irritation in his eyes when he heard, but neither of them had time to argue. Keep up, Falcon, Jason muttered into the cum. Just don't get in my way, she replied evenly. The enemy jets broke formation and dove into aggressive maneuvers. Within seconds, the sky erupted into chaos, jets screaming past one another, missile warnings blaring, voices crackling over the radio. Jason surged ahead recklessly, targeting one of the intruders. Maya followed, but her instincts screamed at her that something was wrong. She scanned the radar, noticing a second cluster circling wide, trying to box them in. Jason, brake right, she warned. He scoffed. I've got this. The alarm shrieked in her cockpit. She didn't think she reacted. Diving hard, she launched a flare, pulling a maneuver that forced her jet between Jason and the incoming missile. The flare detonated. Intercepting the heat lock just in time, Jason's breath crackled over the cum, shaken. Why did you know time? She cut him off. We moved together. Cover me. Something shifted then. For the first time, Jason listened. The dogfight intensified. Missiles streaked through the sky like vengeful comets, tracer fire arcing across the clouds. Maya moved with a precision that felt less like calculation and more like instinct, like she and the machine were one. Every time the enemy closed in, she found an opening. Every time Jason was pinned, she was there. But then came the moment that would define everything. An emergency transmission crackled in their headsets. Civilian aircraft detected. Flight 237 commercial has entered the conflict zone by mistake. They're in danger. The squadron froze for a fraction of a second. A passenger plane caught in the middle of war. Hundreds of innocent lives. And the hostile jets were already angling toward it, closest to the civvies. The commander barked. Maya checked her instruments. Her chest tightened. She was the closest. This is Falcon 12, she said. I'm in range. Negative, Jason snapped. You'll never make it in time. Maya ignored him. Roared as she broke formation, cutting through the sky with every ounce of thrust her jet could give. The world blurred around her, clouds ripping past, the horizon tilting as she pushed the aircraft beyond limits that would have made lesser pilots black out. Her body screamed under the G-force, but her mind was a razor's edge. The civilian plane appeared ahead, a lumbering giant compared to the agile fighters. And beyond it, the Predator's two hostile jets, lining up for a strike. Falcon 12, your weapons free. The tower's voice came, steady but urgent. Do what you have to do. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Time slowed. Of every moment that had brought her here, every laugh, every sneer, Falcon 12. The name rang in her head. No longer a taunt, but a mantle. She fired. The missile streaked forward, locking on the first hostile and detonating in a burst of fire. She banked hard, rolling under the belly of the passenger plane to emerge. On the other side, a second hostile locked onto her, but she was already moving, weaving through the clouds. Drawing its aim away from the civilians, Jason's voice cut through the cum. On your 6, Falcon. I've got him. A moment later, Jason's missile hit its mark. The second hostile disintegrated into flame. The skies went quiet, except for the heavy breathing of the pilots. The civilian plane, unaware of just how close it had come to destruction, continued its steady path to safety. Control's voice broke the silence. Falcon 12. Civilian flight confirmed safe. Pete, confirmed safe. Outstanding work. For the first time, the tower didn't sound clinical. It sounded proud. Maya exhaled, her body trembling with the release of tension. She glanced at Jason's. Jet beside hers? He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then quietly, almost reluctantly, nice flying Falcon. By the time they landed, the base was waiting. Word had already spread. Mechanics, officers, even the commander himself stood by as Maya climbed out of her jet. The silence that had once greeted her call sign was gone. Now it was replaced with something she had never heard before. Cheers. She removed her helmet, the wind tugging at her hair, and for once she didn't feel the weight of eyes judging her. They weren't laughing anymore. They were looking at her with something close to awe. The commander approached, his stern face softened. You saved hundreds of lives today. You carried the weight of the sky. Falcon 12. You've earned every bit of that name. Her throat tightened, but she forced a nod. Just doing my duty, sir. But deep inside, she knew it was more than that. That night, as she lay in her bunk, the echoes of the day replayed in her mind, the roar of engines, the flash of missiles, the sound of the tower clearing her into the sky. Falcon 12, you're cleared. It was no longer a joke. It was history. It was legacy, and from that day forward, whenever her call sign lit up across the control tower's screens, no one laughed. Instead, they listened, because they knew that when Falcon 12 was in the air, the skies and everyone beneath them were safe.